Hello and welcome to Farm to School Keeps Growing at NOFA New Hampshire's 20th Annual Winter Conference. I'm Laura Angers, NOFA New Hampshire's Program Coordinator, and I'll be hosting this session with Carl Johnson, President of NOFA New Hampshire's Board of Directors. First, please note that we're recording this session and all sessions throughout the conference. Some are up on the website now on that workshop links page, and we'll be adding more as the week goes on. Everyone will be muted during the workshop, so please type your questions into the chat box throughout the discussion. We'll read out your questions after each speaker and at the end if we have more time. And NOFA New Hampshire's Winter Conference is supposed to foster an open, welcoming environment and safe space for everyone, so please keep your questions and comments constructive in the chat. For technical issues, please feel free to communicate publicly through the chat or message me privately. And if you'd like to access closed captioning, click on the CC icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's an arrow next to that CC icon and then click Show Subtitle. And if you're watching it in a smaller screen, it might be 3 dots that say More and click on that and then select the Show Subtitle option. Now, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge this conference is taking place on the land of the Pennacook tribe, or Ndakina, the Abenaki word for the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. And we acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and waterways and the Alnobak, or people who have stewarded this land through the generations. And now it's my pleasure to introduce or pass it over to Stacey Purslow of the New Hampshire Farm to School program.
Thanks, Laura. Let me just get my... Wow, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. Again, I'm Stacey Purslow, the program coordinator for New Hampshire Farm to School. And as Laura said, we'll be taking questions as we go. So please put any questions or comments in the chat. And if we have time at the end, we'll also take questions then. So tonight we'll be taking an in-depth look at several farm to school programs around the state. Presenters include Jessica Munroe from Grow Nashua, Jameson Small from the Organization for Refugee and Immigrant Success and their Fresh Start Farms program, Wendy Berkeley, the Farm to School coordinator for the Somersworth School District, and myself, who will be presenting on behalf of Androscoggin Valley Farm to School, which includes the communities of Berlin, Gorham, and Milan. So first speaker tonight is Jessica Munroe. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm Jess. I am the Youth Education Director for Grow Nashua. I'm a former elementary school teacher, and now I'm working to develop and implement programming for elementary age students centered around gardening, nutrition, and environmental learning. Grow Nashua is a nonprofit that serves the city of Nashua, and we're located in southern New Hampshire. We've been offering elementary school garden opportunities for about the past 6 years, and we were able to get started through partnership and collaboration with the New Hampshire Farm to School Network. We focus our outreach on Nashua's Title I elementary schools, where schools average about 65 to 75% of their populations accessing free and reduced lunch. We currently provide a variety of garden classes and school garden tours for students, and we're taking steps to strengthen our school gardening offerings by delivering year-round programming to more students. Next slide, Stacey. Grow Nashua was envisioned back in 2015 with the goal of connecting families in the city to spaces where they could grow their own food. We quickly learned how many residents were struggling with food security, and that original idea expanded to provide wellness and education for families in need. On the top of your screen, you can see our first community garden and the group of gardeners that grew with us that first season. And on the bottom of the screen is the first school garden that we worked to establish. It was a courtyard space that was located inside one of the schools and some of our first students. Community is at the heart of everything we do, and we strive to make connections in the community and also help to connect neighbors to each other. Next slide. We currently offer 4 core programs. We now have 7 community gardens, or what we call growing spaces. Those are located in neighborhoods throughout the city. 3 of those spaces are community gardens that are next to or at elementary schools. So they serve as school garden space and grow space for the neighborhood. Growing education has 2 branches, the farm to school work that we do, and then also adult learning opportunities for our community gardeners and other people in the city. We have 3 little free farm stands that are open June to October, and they offer free local produce to families in need. And we also have a compost pickup service. This last program, Curbside Compost, is the only program that we actually charge for. The rest of our programming is all offered free to the community, and it's funded through a variety of grants and donations. Next slide. All of our programming is like cohesively fit together so that we have families that participate in multiple programs. We want to see this because the more hours that families, and in particular kids, have access to, the more time they have to practice health and nutrition and wellness. We work to connect kids to our programming by sending home information and invitations through school. So we send home invitations to our grow spaces through the kids' folders at school and invite their families to grow with us. We have a at-home cooking program going right now where kids and their parents can cook together at home. And we even incentivize our kids to visit the little free farm stands during the summer. Last year, we gave the kids badges for participating in each school garden class that we offered. And we offered them like a bonus badge if they came to the little free farm stand over the summer. So that's the one that you see here. Next slide. Last year, who would have thought we would be doing school garden education online, but we did. Of course, there were many challenges that we faced, one of them being the fact that Nashua was remote for a lot of the year. And it seemed like whenever we would make a plan, things would change, and we were just kind of constantly rewriting what we were thinking and doing. But with every challenging situation, of course, there's some positives. So it gave us some time to kind of rethink and envision our programming, put some structure to it. We decided to concentrate our contact on upper elementary school students and encourage new teachers to join into our programming. We were able to put together a multi-lesson series and launch that over Zoom. So we worked with remote classes in the city, and we packed up supply bags that had everything that the kids needed to participate in 4 garden lessons, distributed those out through the school, and met with classes once a week for a month. And we planted and ran experiments. We even did some cooking online. We were doing some of our classes during April, and that is the harvest of the month vegetable for carrots. And so we learned about nutrition and working in the kitchen. And in the background, I was demonstrating and sauteing carrots over Zoom. The kids were also given extensions so that when the class was over, they had some things that they could do to continue their learning at home. Next slide. So we've come a long way. And when we think about where we are today, one of the big things that we wanted to do for this year was keep in contact with students. We believe that the more times that you can connect with kids, the greater their learning. And so we developed offerings throughout the 4 seasons. You know, there's endless ways to do this with school garden curriculum and farm to school curriculum. And so on the right, you can kind of see how we're envisioning it for this year. And when we can't be in the garden, we want to still make contact with kids. So I mentioned the cooking program that we're doing right now. We have some maple sugaring classes coming up. Over the summer, we offer a summer camp, and we have different ways that we connect with the kids when they're not in school, but we try to keep that health and nutrition learning going. We also have an on-staff educator, that's me, and several volunteers that help to make all of the in-person work that we do with students take place in small groups. We're very grateful for the teachers and principals that welcome us into their schools. And we're focused on teaching during school hours this year because we believe in the positive influence that teachers have on their class. And when kids see that time is being dedicated out of their school day to the garden, it puts value to that learning and content. Everything that we do is focused around building environmental and food literacy through school garden opportunities. Okay, next slide. So with the time that I have left, I wanted to just give you guys a couple little quick snapshots of what our programming looks like. So this is a program that's running right now. It's an example of our at-home learning. This is called Veggies at Home. And Veggies at Home is a family program that kids and parents can engage in together. Invitations are sent home through the kids' classrooms. Families sign up, and once they sign up, they'll receive a cooking kit each month. We use the harvest of the month produce and the harvest of the month recipes. You're looking at January's kit. January was parsnips. And the kit includes the produce that the families need to cook, the recipe, a cooking tutorial for whatever our featured recipe is that month. This month it was parsnip chips. And everything's packaged up and sent home with the kids through the school. We do this to get kids excited about trying a new veggie or a new recipe, and really trying to continue the conversation about fresh, nutritious food when we can't be with them in the garden. Next slide. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of our in-person offerings that we do. We do garden tours in the spring and in the fall. And so you're looking here at a couple of pictures that it's the same garden, it's just what it looks like in the spring and what it looks like in the fall. And we want the kids to be getting into the garden and really getting up close and looking at how the garden changes throughout the seasons. So we worked with some classes in the spring when the garden was like nice and fresh and brand new, little seedlings coming up. And the goal of a garden tour is really just to share the changing garden with them. What we do during a garden tour is we let the garden kind of guide the lesson plan. So we go in a week before and just take a look at what's happening in the garden. And then we show those things to the kids. While they're touring the garden, they're also doing a variety of hands-on things. In the spring, we were able to see kale that was going to seed. We opened up the compost and the kids kind of took a look at what was in there and they did some compost turning. We also brought our worms and vermicompost kit and kind of talked to the kids about that. And in the fall, they got to see kind of the seed to seed life cycle. You know, everything was giant and kind of tipping over. We cut those sunflowers down. We looked at the seed heads. We did some seed saving. Fourth graders planted garlic that'll be coming up in the spring. And they helped us to close down some of the garden beds. So we just kind of get them in there and just see what's happening in the garden at that time. And last slide. And so this is my last slide. If you guys have any questions, you can type them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. While we're waiting to see if any of those come in, I'll just kind of share a few reflections with you guys. You know, through my time in the garden, I've learned how important building relationships is. You know, teachers and principals are giving you their students for a period of time. And so they want to know that you're going to follow through with what you say you're going to do and that you're going to use that time in a meaningful way. I also think it's important to note that schools don't have to have a, you know, typical raised garden, school garden in order to do school gardening. Kids can grow in their classroom. Kids can grow in a container. There's a lot of different ways to get kids connected to fresh food. And, you know, working with another teacher's class can be tough. It's important to take time to kind of establish some guidelines and teach them a little bit about what you expect from them in the garden. Working in the garden is different than being outside for recess. And I think that time will be well spent to kind of set that aside. And I typically overplan. That's kind of my tip. My key to success is, you know, I overplan. I have extra things ready to go for whatever gets thrown at me. And if I don't use it, I can save it until next time. There's just so many benefits to school garden work. I'm so fortunate to be part of it. And definitely check out our website if you want to learn more about Grow Nashua as an organization or more about our school gardening program, or email me. My email is really easy to remember, just jess@grownashua.org. I'd be happy to connect with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jess. That's awesome. Always doing some great work in Nashua. Any questions or comments come in, Laura?
Not yet.
Okay. So we'll move on, but again, feel free. We can address questions if you have one for Jess. We can address it later. Next speaker is Jameson Small with Oris and Fresh Start Farms.
Great, thank you, and welcome everybody, and thanks for taking the time for joining us today. As Stacey said, my name is Jameson and I work for Oris. We're based out of Manchester, and I'm the program director for our Fresh Start Farms program. If you want to go to the next slide, Stacey. Just a little bit of background about Oris and Fresh Start Farms, just to set some context. And our farm to school program is just starting. So, we are coming into it. I'm going to my plan here is to kind of show you how we got to our idea, what our plans are, and probably just that. So Fresh Start Farms is a collective brand of farmers, new American farmers that are part of our training program that Oris runs. We provide technical TA assistance on the farm. We help with establishing business plans and planting plans and marketing assistance. We also help connect farmers to either land that we own or lease so that they can grow. Some farmers grow to make money. Some growers grow just foods that they want to eat and share with their families. So land access is definitely a big part of that, and the infrastructure that's needed to be able to be successful at that. The Fresh Start Farms grew into this food hub element where we aggregate food and distribute it around the state, specifically mostly for farmers that either still don't have a car yet or are still working towards getting their licenses, so they're not really able to get into farmers markets quite yet, but want to start producing food for the community. If you want to do the next slide, that's Mukmajeni. That's in our Concord site. So some of the people, the program started in 2010. It was a pretty traditional. It started out as growers growing for subsistence, growing foods that they were used to having back in their home country that you couldn't find in markets here. Now we're up to 26 farmers that are growing to sell food, representing from 5 different countries. 90% of the farmers are women. I think this is our founding sisters, I guess, plus Sylvan, who's also a presenter this week with NOFA. This is in our Dumbarton farm. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll dig into, this is also Dumbarton. So these farmers here, since they were the first ones to start in the program, they really are tied to farmers markets. That's where they make the vast majority of their money. They grow 90 to 120 different crops each year. In Dumbarton, they started growing really culturally appropriate crops like certain varieties of corn and amaranth greens. And then when they saw this market booming, in 2010, 2012 on farmers markets, they started to learn how to grow Western veg to be able to sell direct to consumer. And this is Fadumo and Camise. They have land in Dumbarton. If you want to go to the next slide. Then in 2018, we were able to expand into some land that we lease at the St. Paul's School. And this is a totally different resettlement group, mostly Congolese folks. We came into this land mostly kind of the same approach. Let's grow culturally appropriate foods, provide some training, and they also kind of caught on to the farmers market scene. So then we wanted to really try to start thinking of ways that we could have more farmers at farmers markets, but also could be strategic about guiding what types of foods that they should bring, so they're not really kind of starting to cannibalize and kind of intercompete a bit. So we started a pop-up market in Morningstar, which is a spot in Concord where a lot of folks live, and they took off with really focusing on ethnic crops. That's Amisa there holding up some African eggplant. There's some squash leaves, some amaranth, and that market, we bring one staff member with a credit card reading machine, and they do the rest. People drive from New York, Massachusetts, fill up trucks full of food. So they've been really successful at that. And then if you want to go to the next slide, as you all know, then we have COVID. And this is something that really kind of shook Oris completely, like everybody else. We were in the process of, at this point, pre-COVID, we didn't have a refrigerator. Our wash station was in buckets, and we didn't have really strong infrastructure. And then when COVID hit and there was markets that were closing all over the place, and even people fearful of going to farmers markets, like many producers in the state, we had to quickly kind of pivot to make sure that we could still provide these income opportunities in a safe way too. So we started a project in Spruce Street with some partners to be able to renovate a decrepit building and turn it into a certified commercial kitchen and a retail space, an aggregation space, a wash space that we could really start being able to move all the food that wasn't being able to be moved through these farmers markets. And one thing that we learned there is we started moving our sales online for our CSA, and we had this massive influx of demand, far more greater than what our producers could produce. So during those first kind of shadow months of COVID, there was a lot of Zooms very similar to this, especially with like the Food Alliance through UNH, whereas all producers on there being like, you know, what are you doing for X, Y, and Z, and how are you going to solve this problem? And this person needs 1,000 pounds of carrots. How can we help get them that? And this organization really started to be built from that. And then we really were able to see some opportunity from that. So if you want to go to the next slide, Stacey, sorry. One of those things that came out of that naturally was this New Hampshire Food Hub Network. And to give some context, there's a bunch of these food hubs across the state that are doing similar aggregation distribution things. For example, Three Rivers prior to COVID was mostly wholesaling to restaurants. When the restaurants closed, what do? So they started Veggie to Go. So they started direct to consumer home delivery. We were doing kind of the same thing. Belknap Food Shed started doing the same thing. They also have a co-packing spot up now in Laconia. They're in Meredith at the time. So we built a relationship with Belknap. We built a relationship with Three Rivers, Kearsarge. We were able to get food shipped from Vermont over to western part of the state, and then I could pick it up on my way into work. And we were able to shift food around so we could keep up with the demand, and everyone was able to keep on fulfilling these orders. And what was built from it at the end of it is much to what Jess was talking about, is like this power of relationship building. And when grants come up and about, you know, we're a nonprofit as well and rely heavily on grants, a lot of federal grants. And we've applied for farm to school in the past, but really put, you know, farm to school, the demands for the grant is often geared towards agricultural education and local procurement. And you can kind of pick one of the two. And we were really focused on procurement. We wanted to sell food to schools. That was really important to us. We're always constantly trying to make new markets for farmers' foods. But we were finding that, you know, when our food is pretty much finishing for the year, that's right when the season of the schools start working. So it's hard for us to do futures contracts or really do any type of bidding because of supplies on the market. But by having these partners, now we have this year-round supply. So that was helpful. So we started investigating, you know, Belknap Food Shed. They can make tomato sauce, you know, as an example, which we'll get into once I start talking more about the grant. You know, we always have thousands of pounds of tomatoes. At one point, we were donating them all. Now we have a way that we can process them, save them, and turn it into a value-added product. So we started the grant writing process. You want to go to the next slide, Stacey? Similarly to the Food Hub Network, you know, this big group of partners, everyone kind of specializes in their own thing. And I think that that's what's my biggest takeaway from our proposal and our project is that we, as Oris or as Fresh Start Farms, it's impossible. We wouldn't be able to do this project without all these other partners. And I'm guessing the USDA wouldn't have funded it if we didn't have all these other partners who have the expertise to be able to help us. So we started going into the community to see, you know, we're weak on education, right? We can train new American farmers, but none of us have been into a school before. So we need help with that. We don't have the means to turn our kitchen into making tomato sauce. So how can we lean on a partner like Genuine Local to do something like that? Grow Nashua, they have extremely good educational curriculum already built, and a bunch of community gardeners that want to be participating in growing. How can we utilize that? Stacey, who introduced the grant, like how can, and has already talked with all the food service directors and knows everybody and all the connections. How can we utilize that? And up in the top is Ara, who is officially in charge of the Little League for the city of Manchester, but also on the side runs all the community gardens, and is learning a lot from Grow Nashua's approach. He has access to greenhouses in the city that are free to use and can grow all these seedlings. So all in all, we did a pilot and of tomato sauce, and up at Genuine Local, we froze tomatoes all season, brought them up, they turned them into sauce. It was the Emoja pasta sauce, and it worked well. It was simple, it was economical. So then we started thinking about what types of foods that we can make that schools want, that are sustainable, financially sustainable. And what type of items that came to mind were like pizza. Kids love it. Most times it's frozen, it's garbage. There's good profit margins in it though, like there's pizza everywhere. So how can we use that as a catalyst to be able to get our foot in the door with schools and get them to start procuring regularly throughout the school year some food? But then also the most important piece, like Jess was alluding to, is how can you get the kids to buy in? And they're really the ones that are going to be poking teachers and principals and school board members to continue this work. And so, what we kind of came to this conclusion is we want to, if you haven't caught on, do pizzas for schools, have kids help us plant all the seeds with these community gardeners and these other partner organizations in the schools. Then we do big community harvests, aggregate the tomatoes, bring them up to Genuine Local, make about 4,000 pounds worth of tomato sauce, sit on it, and then make pizzas for 4 Manchester schools once a month for the next 2 years and 2 Nashua schools. So those kids help planted those seeds will be able, this spring, will be able to return next fall and eat the pizza throughout the year. And it will be interesting to see, school participation or school meal participation rates. It will be interesting to see if they're open to doing some toppings, and it will be interesting to see, what other types of foods that are produced locally make sense to fit into schools. So that, I think, may be my last slide. Oh yeah, so here's kind of the quick rundown. We are working with 6 schools with this program. There will be 300 student participants who are going to help with the planting process. The seedlings will then be distributed to 294 community gardeners in the region that they can plant for free. We also have money in this grant to provide 46 hours of TA for local producers, for food service directors and their staff. That's about it. And we're going to be able to make 5,000 pounds of sauce tomatoes with a certain variety. And then we have enough seedlings to produce about 35,000 pounds that people will be eating throughout the summer, hopefully. We have money to be able to document this. So our goal is we'll have an 8 to 10 minute film from a producer that's going to film this, that we can, as we're sharing that first pizza in a Q&A with the farmers that help produce it, we can eat the pizza, watch the film, and then see all the different players that it took to make this pizza possible. So we'll end up doing about 31,000 servings of pizza for this grant. And like I said, it will get our foot in the door. I think that is definitely my time, and I'm open for any questions, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jameson.
Yeah.
I see there's some things in the chat, Laura. I don't know what's in there.
Yes, a couple of questions came in for Jess and Grow Nashua, or about Grow Nashua. So do you mind if we jump back to that for a second? Okay, so Jess, do you ever have like a garden day where veggies are shared with all the students or prepared in the school? Jeffrey is suggesting that may help generate more interest.
I like that idea. We have not been able to produce enough to do like a harvest day, but we do have one planned for this fall. We are hoping to coordinate that along with, Farm to School Month. And I think that growing some things like greens or kale that can grow in abundance would be great. And so we're working on it. We're getting there.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Joan had a question about the structure of Grow Nashua and is wondering if it's under the umbrella of the city of Nashua.
We're not under the city. We operate separate as our own nonprofit. We do our own grant writing, but we do receive some grant money from the city of Nashua. They do support our community garden and school work.
Okay, great, thank you. And that is it for questions for now in the chat.
Okay, thanks. So our next speaker is Wendy Berkeley from Somersworth.
Hi, I'm Wendy Berkeley, and I'm the Farm to School Coordinator for Somersworth School District. I also live in Somersworth and send my kids to Somersworth schools. And Stacey invited me to share our school district's compost success story, how we essentially went from no composting, everything in the trash, next slide, and evolved from no composting, food waste, turning it into soil for our expanding number of school gardens. So our mission in Somersworth, bump ahead one or two, Stacey, is to improve local food access to fresh and local foods, increase our school gardens, connect our curriculum to agriculture-based and real-world lessons through a variety of disciplines. Also, increasing community connections. And over the years, our goal has really started to focus on sustainability efforts, improving our sustainability efforts in the schools and in the community. Next slide. So it all began in the middle school in around the spring of 2016. Some teachers with students posed a question, what is in our waste stream? And they connected this to different math lessons and science lessons. And they essentially set about discovering that, opened up some trash bags from the cafeteria to see that there was a whole lot in there that really did not need to be. And their solution to that problem was, let's try composting. And next slide, they started with pretty small scale compost corrals on the middle school campus. Basically just doing exactly what you're seeing right here, building them, composting. They already had a pretty healthy school garden program going at the middle school. So the soil that they were able to create, they could use in the gardens. They liked the fact that they were not putting as much food waste into landfills, but it really wasn't enough. They wanted to go bigger. Next slide. So in 2016, that's when we met Stacey. Got to know Stacey through New Hampshire Farm to School, and they had some money for Somersworth schools to really start to spread the Farm to School mission, not just within one school, the middle school, but to spread it out amongst all of our schools. We have 4. So the first thing we did with that money was to fund the already happening Farm to School activities. There were school gardens on the campus, especially these garlic gardens that were used within the curriculum. There was also some community gardens that the students used during the school day, but also during the after school and the summer program. They were within a walking distance. There were community gardens, part of a subsidized housing neighborhood. So that became a pretty popular activity within the after school program. So Farm to School helped us continue that. Next slide. It also began to fund a coordinator role, which Somersworth had never had. So that is me and my daughter when she was in probably 4th grade. at one of the elementary schools. Some teachers from the middle school went to New England Northeast Farm to School Institute in Vermont. And the advice they got was, if you really want your farm to school program to grow, then you need to have someone specifically dedicated to that role. Teachers are far too busy, administrators are far too busy. So that's where I came into the picture. And, initially with the goal of getting more local foods into our cafeterias and connecting farm to school to curriculum and school gardens. Next slide. The third big thing that we opted to do with that initial funding from New Hampshire Farm to School was to go bigger with the compost. Somersworth is right on the Maine border. Maine has some more liberal composting laws than New Hampshire does. In Maine, it is allowable to compost meat and dairy. New Hampshire, I don't think we're there yet. So the Mr. Fox facility is probably 10, 12 miles from Somersworth. So we started a contract for the middle school to do all of our cafeteria composting through them. They come once a week and pick up our 5 or 6 totes, bring it back to the facility. As you can see there, that's a field trip that students went on from our middle school, where they saw where their food went, what happened to it, learned about the process of composting. Also, with this pretty large contract, we get a full cubic yard of compost from Mr. Fox. So that's really fantastic for the school gardens to have that just coming delivered to our doorstep in the spring when we need it. Next slide. In the middle school, did and still does, they take their composting game really seriously. What you're seeing here is students with gloves on and tongs and aprons, and they're digging right into that compost and pulling things out that don't belong there. We have something called community days in our schools, Fridays, where some topic is delved into, and the middle school spent a lot of Fridays diving into the do's and don'ts of composting, the fundamentals, what's supposed to be composted, what's recyclable, what belongs in the trash. And the kids take it really seriously. The adults take it really seriously. We have had phenomenal support from the administrators, particularly in the middle school, right from the beginning. And that's really the key to success, is getting your administrators on board and modeling from the staff too. It really encourages the students. Next slide. We also partnered with an organization called Northeast Resource Recovery Association, and they were really, really helpful. Actually, Jameson's wife was working for them at the time, so she got to spend a lot of time playing around in our dumpsters, and they helped us really identify how we could do more, how we could do better, and how that translated into cost savings. And that first year of composting at the middle school, we diverted 771 pounds a month on average of food waste from the landfills. And we were able to eliminate 2 entire trash dumpsters that the middle school and high school share as a result of composting and just paying attention to what's in our waste stream. Next slide. So during that time, in addition to really learning about compost and trying to spread the farm to school mission around the district, again, having a paid coordinator gave the district the opportunity to apply for this farm to school planning grant. That's how I spent a lot of my time that year. And we did receive a farm to school planning grant in June of 2018 for 1 year. And that continued to support the middle school compost. And also we added Maplewood Elementary School composting with that grant. Next slide. The Maplewood does some cool things with their school gardens. They really do weave it right into curriculum almost naturally. The 3rd graders plant a 3 Sisters garden in the spring as part of their science unit, plant biology. And then when those 3rd graders return in the 4th grade, all of that is ready to be harvested. And they use that harvest as part of their Native American unit in social studies. So the students get to see the whole process from the start to the harvest, and they get to taste it and they get to take care of it. So it's that was a pretty the principal came up with that idea, and it's kind of stuck. I mean, COVID definitely interrupted everything, but that's a steady there. So they have a pretty great system at Maplewood Elementary of integrating their school gardens into the curriculum. Next slide. Other ways that were surprises, the way Farm to School integrated into curriculum that was less obvious, is we used that grant to pay for the construction of a tool shed for our equipment, our supplies, our materials, and it was built by our students in the high school building trades. So that was a kind of a surprise connection, a connection to the high school that was we continue to connect with our high school building trades teacher. He loves real world lessons, and we have other plans that we are working toward with him and his students. Next slide. Our video production students filmed a video of a Farm to School projects and compilation. We had some marketing students promote local foods in our cafeterias. Our logo came from the digital media students, as did a brochure. What's great about our video students is the teacher also happens to own a video production business. So he's able to bring his students out doing real world projects. And then he brings things back to his studio and puts some real fine finishing touches on it. So we use that grant to just promote the heck out of ourselves that year. Next slide. When I was initially in this role, Mr. Fox, even though they're right over the border, they didn't have enough clientele in Somersworth to come do residential pickup. So here we are in the community connection phase. Suddenly you add 2 schools where they're coming once a week to pick up 12 totes of cafeteria compost waste. It's a pretty easy addition to add some residential customers to it. So where we could not get residential pickup from Mr. Fox, now they come to Somersworth once a week. They pick up as many residents as want to have a tote for whatever the fee is per month or every 2 weeks. And we also have a tote at our DPW that the city has chosen to fund for any resident who doesn't want a tote and just wants to bring their compost down to the DPW, and that also gets picked up once or twice a week, and that's free of charge to any Somersworth resident. So the schools really have kind of pushed the needle for sustainability in Somersworth. Next slide. Meanwhile, we did receive another Farm to School grant in 2020, which we are finally able to start to use. Somersworth was also doing remote schooling for quite a bit of last school year. So we are continuing with our compost contracts with the middle school, with Mr. Fox in the middle school, Maplewood Elementary School, and we're starting to lay some groundwork for the high school, hopefully to begin next year. We're partnering with the building trades teacher again for his students to build a mobile outdoor classroom in Maple Sugar Shack. We are hoping to get our students out to the Malley Farm Community Gardens as an extended campus. And with this grant, we are also now stipending staff advisors to students' sustainability clubs. The goal here is to have the students set the tone, decide what sustainability efforts they want their schools to focus on, and to have a staff leading those students. We all know, you can't always expect people to volunteer, but if you attach some money to it, then staff are willing to put in a little extra time. And next slide. So it's grades 3 different schools, Maplewood Elementary. They're really trying to increase their composting capacity at that school by having classroom composting, and students take charge of that responsibility of emptying the classroom compost totes. The high school is, as I said, laying the groundwork for composting next year. Also planning gardens and partnering with the middle school and the community to have more gardens on campus. And next slide. The middle school, I mean, they just keep focusing on sustainability. So this teacher here is John Dinger, and he was the brainchild of wanting to compost at the middle school back in 2017. He's the sustainability club advisor at the middle school. They continue to, weigh their compost and figure out how to do more, how to do better. They're starting to explore the campus and the trails around the campus for natural resources, continuing to garden. So it's really now we're trying to put it in the hands of the students with some adult guidance to I guess turn the heat up a little bit, to get people to really pay attention. Right now, all of our composting efforts have been grant funded, and in the future, we'd certainly like to see some school district funding. We're just not there yet. And next slide. This sign, when my kids went to the Maplewood School, this sign was in the school gardens, and I always loved that message when I would have reason to go to their school. Be kind whenever possible. It's always possible. It's been a heck of a couple of years, so thanks for logging in tonight and coming out to this virtual conference, and be kind. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Awesome to hear the continuation of all the great work in Somersworth. Laura, any questions coming in?
Yes, Joan was wondering if it was a challenge to get the kitchen staff and janitors on board.
Yes, it was a challenge. And it's really important in particular to get, I'm thinking more of custodial staff, facilities, kitchen staff. Yeah, that has also been difficult but for different reasons. We have a new kitchen, a new food service director now, and that has been a much smoother path. But as far as initially composting at the middle school, it was definitely met with a lot of resistance from our facilities director at the time. And a lot has to do with they are already strapped for time, his custodians. So asking them to do more or extra it's never welcome. So we've really been working on how to make it part of what they're doing, make it not extra work. And actually what they do at our middle school now is students actually walk around with the compost tote and go from table to table, and their peers put their compostable food or whatever into the compost tote rather than the custodian having to deal with it. So I think putting it in the students' hands has helped, but having the conversations with the facilities director early and doing a lot of listening is a really good start.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions came in. Carl's wondering if the students remain involved when they're in high school.
We don't have composting yet at the high school, so the sustainability club advisor has that on his wish list. I think it'll be interesting because this year's middle schoolers are next year's high schoolers. So, and already that's happening. The middle schoolers were composting. Now they're at the high school. A lot of them are already saying, where's the compost? Because they remember doing it. It was pretty habitual. So I hope that starts to reverberate more as more students start to enter the high school and realize that it isn't in the high school at this point.
Thank you. And one other question from Jameson. He said he saw the styrofoam in the pre-compost picture and is wondering if the school has switched or is looking at PLAs or fiber packaging.
We did switch. We switched this year. So that was awesome, finally.
Very cool. Thank you. And that's it for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So next up is me with Androscoggin Valley Farm to School. So Androscoggin Valley Farm to School began in 2018 with a team from Berlin attending the New Hampshire Farm to School Summer Institute, which we held at UNH. The goals of Androscoggin Valley Farm to School include increasing the percent of institutions and organizations sourcing local healthy foods in the Androscoggin Valley, increase percent of youth participating in youth-adult relationships through food access initiatives, and to increase the number of opportunities for regional youth and families to learn cooking and gardening skills through farm to school educational activities. So how do we do that? We do a lot of network building. We have more than 40 partners as part of our network up there. We work on community engagement. We've heard everyone talk about community engagement so far. It's an important component. We collaborate on projects, we develop resources, and we offer professional development opportunities. So the beginning partners in our Androscoggin Valley Farm to School included pretty small. This is the team that came to the Institute. The Berlin Head Start, UNH Extension, the City of Berlin, the Family Resource Center, and then WREN, the Women's Rural Entrepreneurial Network. And so from that, we've gone to this, and there's probably a few more partners we could add to this slide. So a lot of relationships that are happening up there, and including expanding to Milan and the Gorham schools. And also next year, we're going to expand to Errol, which is a teeny little school. They have about 10 kids in their whole school, but they're just north and part of the Androscoggin Valley. And we even have the hospital participating. So we keep growing and expanding and building our partnerships up there. So some of the farm to school projects that have been worked on, working with a local maple farm and getting some of that maple syrup into some of the schools up there. One of our other projects, I think it was in 2020, buying the little sampler, the small little bottles of maple syrup, and putting together what we called a sunshine bag. It was a bag of lots of locally sourced ingredients that got packed and sent home to all of the Head Start families from Berlin Head Start. So there was locally made bread and some locally sourced eggs and maple syrup. And it came with different recipes. And so every family got a bag to take home, and they could make a couple of breakfasts with the ingredients. Again, a collaborative, very collaborative project. One of the COVID activities, so we've all been talking about COVID activities, was the creation of these to-go to grow kits. Somewhat like Jess was talking about with Grow Nashua, of sending home kits of seeds and soil and egg cartons, and kids could plant these seeds at home. So number of kits went to the Milan Village School, Berlin Head Start, and then some to the Gorham after school program. And there's just some of the activities. They were planting their seeds. We also created a video series some super fun, supportive ladies in the community developed these video series. Again, this is a lot of COVID, because of COVID, that the families and kids could watch at home. And you can find them all. So the Androscoggin Valley Farm to School Facebook page, you can find all the videos. They're very cute. And they addressed a number of topics. Let me see. So they made one about planting potatoes in a container, making a pasta and garden vegetable lunch, making an outdoor oven using a cardboard box, and cooking pizza in it, which was a really interesting project, not without its faults, as you can imagine. But yeah, so the instructions on how to build your own outdoor oven you can find. You can see it involves a lot of aluminum foil. So there's the outdoor oven, and the heat source is there's a pie pan of charcoal briquettes, which is the heat source, which is hard to control the temperature of, just FYI. So, families could make dough, they could, pick toppings from the vegetables or the herbs they grew in their gardens, and create this outdoor oven and cook pizza in it. So I guess we have a pizza theme going tonight too. It was a collaboration between 4-H as it was sort of a contest within the 4-H group that's up there to create these pizzas and have them judged and whatnot. So it's a fun at-home project. Oh, that's the wrong way. So the Berlin Head Start, they actually don't have a lot of outdoor green space where they're at. So they do a lot of container gardening. So these are some of their uses for their milk jugs, to turn them into containers and decorate them. And you can see they're growing onions and herbs. And I know they grew radishes in there as well. And then they harvested them and the kids got to try the radishes. They also last fall participated in the New Hampshire Great Apple Crunch, which is an initiative of the Department of Education, Nutrition Services Department. So this is the second year of the Great Apple Crunch last fall. So Androscoggin Valley Farm to School set up at the Gorham Farmers Market. They have a cool like little thing that you stick your head through to get that they made, along with a cornhole game as well that looks the same. So the kids got to try all kinds of different apple varieties and vote on their favorite. So it was a good fun way to promote farm to school and New Hampshire apples. So the network is still plugging along. We also have applied for a USDA Farm to School grant that, if awarded this summer, will support teacher training, professional development on New Hampshire Harvest of the Month. Teachers, we have stipends for teachers to participate in farm to school action planning for every school in the area. We will have funds to hire a local food procurement coordinator, and we'll be working with all of the schools to develop local food purchasing plans. And then the Berlin Head Start, they are going to get a big hydroponic unit to do some indoor growing. So that we have a lot of good activities planned. So we just have to, I'm assuming that the grant will come through and we'll be able to start kind of get back into it again. So that's what I have for Androscoggin Valley Farm to School, and it's 8 right now. But if you're interested in getting involved in Farm to School, We have some regional networks under development. So we have regional farm to school networks in the Monadnock, Lakes, and North Country. You're welcome to volunteer with any of the programs that presented today. If you want farm to school in your school or communicate, just advocate for it, or you can get in touch with me and I can help you. The Farm to School Network and the New Hampshire School Garden Network have developed a webinar series that's underway now. So these are the upcoming ones. School food and local food procurement, garden and classroom connections, seed saving in school gardens, school composting, troubleshooting challenges of school gardens, and then looking at the educational resources of the Indigenous New Hampshire Collaborative Collective, which is a date and time to be determined yet. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. And I don't know if we have time for any final questions that came in, Laura.
Sure. Not at the moment, but a comment. Carl says you're tireless. Thank you for all that you do.
Well, it's, thank them. It's a collaborative effort for sure.
Right. Maybe we'll pause for one more moment, see if anyone has a question before we close. Joan says Northeast Resource Recovery Association has programs for schools, I guess.
They do, yeah. They have a whole school, I think, department. So if you're interested in learning more about composting and recycling, you can just go there. They have like a school compost recycling club and other kinds of resources.
Very cool. All right. Anything else to add before we close, Stacey?
No, just thank everybody. Thank you, Jess and Jameson and Wendy, for presenting about your programs. And thank you all for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you. And our next session is tomorrow, Friday, February 11th at noon, and that is the Craft of Farming panel discussion. We're going to be talking with a few farmers who have participated in the program, and I'll pop a bunch of links in the chat here. If you're joining us for the first time, I'll just go through this again just in case. Check out our virtual exhibitor fair featuring 17 different exhibitors, including our conference bookstore hosted by Main Street Bookends. And when you order any books through Main Street Bookends and include NOFA-NH in the comments, 20% of proceeds will be donated back to NOFA New Hampshire. And then just a note about a few upcoming programs. Mark your calendars for NOFA New Hampshire's Farm Bill listening session on February 17th at noon, and our Feeding the Family Organic Gardening Series, 6 sessions from February 22nd to May 3rd. And then finally, check out our bulk order program to save on farming and gardening supplies by ordering through NOFA. The order deadline is at the end of this month, February 28th. And pickup is on March 19th and 20th in Andover, New Hampshire, Ware, and Rochester. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us.